Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today we have a donation deck that's been a little bit of time in the works. We've been bouncing a few ideas off of myself and the donor, and we've finally arrived at this after a fair bit of back and forth. So, this is a NAYA Up the Beanstalk deck, which is not really a combination you normally see. So Up the Beanstalk, everyone knows at this point in Legacy, 2 mana enchantment, enters the battlefield, draw a card. Whenever you cast a mana 5 or greater spell, draw a card. So we've got a bunch of ways of drawing cards off this. So we've got Forth Eorlingas, we've got Solitude and Fury, so we can pitch cast these and draw a card. So we may not have Force of Will, but we can deal with our opponent's creatures quite well. And currently in Legacy, you've got a few combo decks, but then you've got a lot of kind of mid-rangey, playing stuff out, going through attack steps, that sort of deck. So having a bunch of these is actually going to be pretty good a lot of the time. We've got Mawloc as well, so we can pump the mana into this, and this can be a card draw with our Up the Beanstalk if we need to, but it's also a spell we can use early on without having to spend 5 mana on it. So that's kind of the theme here, right? We've got spells that can trigger our Up the Beanstalk, but we don't have to pay the full price for them when we don't need to. Obviously, when we do pay the price for this, we get it regardless. We have 1 Triumph of St. Catherine. This is another white card to pitch to Solitude, but just a nice thing to have that also triggers Beanstalk. And then we have 4 Green Sun Zenith, which, again, can trigger Up the Beanstalk. We can overpay and get whatever. We've sort of got a modest package of things that we can find here. So we've got ourselves a Dryad Arbor, some Birds of Paradise, Noble Hierarch, Scavenging Ooze, a Collector Ouphe, an Endurance, and then 4 Knight of the Reliquaries as like big hitters, which is the thing we're most often going to be finding. But then also we can go and fetch these Mawlocs if we do X is 2, and this can come in and fight something small. We've got a few lightning bolts to round out our removal. This can also be a bit of reach because we are kind of like a mid-rangey deck that wants to be pressuring our opponent's life total, and this can sometimes help with that. You could play a split here of Swords to Plowshares and lightning bolts if you wanted to, but we're going to try it with the bolts today. And then we've got another card that's just good, right? Fable the Mirror Breaker. This is exceptional with things like Mawloc and Solitude and Fury, where we just want to copy them and get some crazy value out there. So Fable does some really good work, smooths our draws in a way that green decks, or well, non-blue decks, I guess, haven't really had this sort of draw smoothing for a long time since this came along, and we're pretty happy to have it. Obviously, you could run something like Sylvan Library here as well, but if we're playing like Mana Dorks, so we've got 3 Mana Dorks here, we've also got the Dryad Arbor and the Green Sun Zenith, so we've effectively got 7 Mana Dorks, so going from turn 1 to Fable the Mirror Breaker on turn 2 is pretty potent. We have 4 Wastelands kick around in our mana base, so we can go and shoot those up with a Knight. We also have 1 Cradle, 1 Karakas. So we're not like super heavy into a Knight of the Reliquary package, but it's just going to be a fine thing with all these fetch lands. There are some NAYA Zenith decks floating around already. This is a bit of a departure from those, but there's still some learning from that deck that I've incorporated here. We're not running a lot of basic lands, as you can probably see. Just with the forest, we can cast some of our green spells. And obviously you can use Green Sun Zenith under that. We can cast our red spells under a Blood Moon as well. So Fables and Furies, Mawlocs if we've got our Forest, and Lightning Bolts. And then we can pitch cast our white spells sometimes. So we don't have the most amount of resources to pitch cast to the Solitude, which is something I'm a little bit concerned about. We've got the Knights as well, so hopefully we can just about get through that. And, you know, this is the thing we're happy to cast for 5 mana anyway. So yeah, that's the main deck. Cyber-wise, when we need a bit more removal, we've got a bit more removal. We've got some hatred for artifacts and things, a bit more graveyard hate. We've got ourselves a Gaddock Teeg that we can go and fetch up with our Green Sun Zenith. Yes, it shuts off our Green Sun Zenith and Forth Eorlingas, but in matchups where we want the Gaddock Teeg, this is going to be a card that our opponent can't really win through. And then we've got some counter spells because we're playing red, so we might as well get some red blast in there. Nice clean answers to things like Murktide, as well as forcing through a big play that can just turn the game around. Alright, that's the deck. I'm curious to see how this one plays out. There's a lot of different options available to us in a deck like this, especially for the colour combination. You know, we've got Zenith options, we've got Knight of the Reliquary options, discarding things with Fable the Mirror Breaker. How much are we paying X on our things like our Mawlocs and whatever, when are we pitch casting our spells? So we should have quite a lot of agency, and it should be quite a fun one to play. So remember to like and subscribe, and let's do some NAYA Up the Beanstalk. If you're looking to play Legacy on MTGO like me, why not try Card Hoarder? They're a rental service that I personally use, and I found them better than other rental services that I've used in the past. So why not give them a try? Alright, this seems like a fine hand. We can go Birds of Paradise into Knight of the Reliquary or Green Sun Zenith for 2. if that's going to be a thing we want, like a Collector Ouphe or a Scavenging Ooze, if our opponent's a graveyard or artifact-based deck. And we can also pivot into some removal off of our little lightning bolt we got here. Alright, good old Birds of Paradise. Don't see it as much these days due to Orcish Bowmasters, obviously, but on the play, it's still going to be pretty good for us, I would imagine. A Polluted Delta. A very common sight these days. Okay, what are we looking at here? So, Polluted Delta, I think I'm going to go and get a Scavenging Ooze here. So our opponent could be playing, like, the most common thing they're going to be playing is probably going to be Scam. So we have to decide, would we rather have a Taiga or would we rather have a Plateau? We have 2 white spells we're trying to cast here. So I think that means we're getting the Plateau here. Because obviously this is green and white, so if we lose our birds, it means any land can help us cast a knight. Let's see if we can get friend. Force of Will pitching Wail of the Forgotten. Okay. That means I think we are very much looking at a blue-black Scam deck. Undercity Sewers. They're going to put a big monster in. They are going to put a big monster in. It's not the biggest monster. And it's certainly something that we can challenge as this game goes on. But it's not nothing, that's for sure. Alright, a Reanimate on the Troll of Khazad-dûm. Sure. Okay, so we've got some options here. We can do an Up the Beanstalk, whilst our opponent doesn't have Orcish Bowmaster's mana. Or we can jam ourselves a little 3-3. It just depends what we think this game is about, really. I would quite like to make some more land drops, which kind of makes Up the Beanstalk a better option for us. Our opponent hasn't used a Daze. They didn't use a Daze on our previous play, which suggests to me they didn't have a Daze. And they haven't selected for their draws. The only thing they did selection-wise was the Undercity Sewers, which binned off the Troll. So, am I looking for an Up the Beanstalk here, or am I looking for the Knight of the Reliquary? So this is a 3-turn clock most likely, because we're probably going to take 1 incidental piece of damage from a fetch land or something. So that probably incentivizes us to play out our threats here, rather than try and draw more cards. So let's see how this fares. It's only a 3-3, but we might be able to scale it up next turn and be able to trade favourably in a race against this Troll of Khazad-dûm, because we're certainly not blocking it unless we get 3 cards down. If we can draw a little bit more mana, we can try and cast a Mawloc to try and kill it. We could have done Lightning Bolt plus Mawloc, but that's very easy to break up with a single spell from our opponent, like another Force of Will or a Daze or whatever, and then we're kind of out of 2 cards for nothing there. Whereas this way, we can threaten a race and then try and clean up this Troll of Khazad-dûm if our opponent settles into trying to race us here. As well as possibly being able to win the race because our opponent's at 12. This can also allow us to accelerate our mana. We can go find something like a Cradle, which taps for 2, giving us some more options. An Orcish Bowmasters. So we're going to lose our Birds of Paradise. Then we're going to take 6 here. That's going to put us down to 13. So our opponent has a 2-turn clock on us now. But we've got some potentially good options coming up. It's just a case of how we want to best use them. So we have this Horizon Canopy. So I don't really want to fire off this Up the Beanstalk, as you can probably imagine. If we play this Mawloc where X is 2, where X is 0, then we don't actually, we can actually buy a little bit more time. So if we go green, red here, and just fire this in, we can ping down their Bowmasters, and then we can attack with our Knight, or we can hold our Knight back to give us access to a Lightning Bolt at instant speed by sacrificing one of these for a red source. But let's just fight the Bowmasters first. That's kind of shutting down our Beanstalk. So if we attack our opponent for 3 here, they could block, or they could go down to 8. If they go down to 8, then we've got, what, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have exactly lethal on the crackback. I think that's worth doing here. Alright, we've got a white card in hand if we can draw a Solitude. I don't think taking up a defensive posture against the Troll is going to be useful. Okay, so they can Wasteland us if they want to and take us off of red. Which would be quite useful. For them, obviously. So that will grow our Knight. But growing our Knight might not be a bad thing if they can just chump block it away anyway. Alright, they've come to the same conclusion. Take out our red. Bash for 6 here. Leave back the army to block our big guy. But they'll still need another point of damage. but Orcish Bowmasters can be that point of damage. Dryad Arbor. So we could play this and triple block if we want to, or we could play this at the Beanstalk and try and spike a white card or a red source that would also be relatively useful here. So I think I'm going to, if we play this up the Beanstalk here, worst case scenario, we can play this Dryad Arbor and have 3 blockers for this, unless they kill one of our guys. But I don't think we're beating Orcish Bowmasters here anyway, so I think we're just going to play into it, go down to 6, which is not the lifestyle I want to be on. But let's see if we can get another card here. Alright. No Bowmasters? No Bowmasters. So this gives us a red source. This gives us a blocker. So I think we need the blocker here. Pass. So a Brazen Borrower is pretty bad news for us here. The fact that we're not attacking is great news for them. And they're probably going to seize that and win this game. But if we can survive a turn, then I think we're in a reasonable spot here. We need our selection of relatively small creatures to hold fast. Alright, there's the Borrower, so that's lethal. We can concede there and go to game 2. Alright, we've certainly got some useful tools for this one. I like having Solitude, they have big monsters. Let's get rid of those. I don't hate having a Bojuka Bog, and Endurance is just a really quality creature there. We do not need our Collector Ouphe. Fury is... So there's pros and cons with Fury. Our opponent can reanimate our own Furies, which isn't really where I want to be. But it is a thing that we might have to worry about. So depending on how they sideboard, they might go into more Dauthi Voidwalker style of play. So this might benefit us to have the lightning bolts and things in here. Like, I think we just play a relatively fair Beefy Boys game. If we're bringing in the Bojuka Bog, it kind of has to go into... Are we bringing the Bojuka Bog? Like, it is awkward. And we're going to have 4 Endurances and a Scavenging Ooze. Maybe we don't need the Bojuka Bog. The Mawloc is fine here. The Lightning Bolt's fine. Maybe board out one of our Dorks due to Orcish Bowmasters. Try something like this. We could play some Pyroblasts, but I don't think that's how we want to fight this matchup. I think we're on the little bit of Graveyard Hate and just be able to beat their fair game. Like, we should be able to beat their fair game pretty reliably, because we're just a bit bigger than what their fair game does. So they should stay on the combo plan if they have much of an idea of what sort of deck we're playing. Obviously, we're on a bit of a brew, but they can kind of work out some of the things we're doing. If we're playing Up the Beanstalk, they've seen Knight of the Reliquary, they're going to assume that we've got pitch elementals in here. They can probably work out a lot of our deck list from what they saw. So I think their best plan is to stick to the Reanimator and just use the counter magic and discard to poke a hole in what we're trying to do, so we can't stop that, and then just get something big like an Archon or whatever into play, or an Atraxa. But if they sideboard into just like Dauthi Voidwalkers and that sort of jazz, I think we got that relatively well covered. Well, Gaea's Cradle. Let's send you back. Alright, we can keep this one. What goes back? Probably the spell that we don't really want to have in our hand. There you go. Our opponent's mulligan to 5, which suggests to me they are more towards the Reanimator rather than the Scam with how they sideboarded, which I think makes sense for this matchup, like I said. But it's not great news for what our current hand is. But I don't think we turn down this hand that lets us play on a basic. Alright, so I don't want to get Wastelanded, even though that means we're not holding up Lightning Bolt for the first turn cycle. But I think that's fine. We can play a Mawloc as a creature, just to attack with, or we can sit back. What have we got here? Knight of the Reliquary. So I'm going to play out this... I think this is awkward. If we play out the Plateau, we have access to Lightning Bolt. So I think that's probably worth doing. But it does leave us slightly exposed to a Wasteland in a way that I don't like. If we play out the Horizon Canopy, we have access to no spells this turn, but we are guaranteed to be able to cast the Mawloc on the following turn. So there's definitely some pros and cons. Are we going to see a cycle here? We are going to see a cycle. Okay. Underground Sea, sure. Alright, I'm just going straight in for a Reanimate here. Okay. So we might end up playing a similar game to the one we just did, and we're definitely seeing the weakness of Lightning Bolts in our deck compared to if we had the Plows. So this does not feel like a great play. If we play the Knight of the Reliquary, it plays into Daze. If we play the Scavenging Ooze, it's just not very effective. Am I okay with my opponent playing a Daze? I think so. We need to be able to get the mana so that we can at least cast Mawloc and Lightning Bolt to fight this troll at some point. Alright, we're just in there. So that means our opponent doesn't have a Daze, I think. I think that's a prime target for dazing right there. So we're going to see an Undercity Sewers here and a Surveil. There it is. Alright, they put a Daze into their graveyard. Not interested in that. Fair enough. So they're crashing for 6. Obviously, quite a lot of our life. But can live with that for now, I suppose. A Grief. Okay, this is pretty good. And it's going to poke a sizable hole in what we're doing. So if they reanimate this as well, they get another card. And we're punished for not playing this Scavenging Ooze out. But we needed to work towards what was in play killing us. So I think we're still right to play the Knight in order to try and get hold of a red mana source to do 2 red spells in one turn. We don't have anything like a Maze of Ith we can go in tutor for either to fend off this troll, which is maybe something worth considering. I've taken the Knight. That's interesting. That means they might be getting another bite at it. No, interesting. Well, they've taken the white card, I guess, so we can't Solitude. Okay, this is kind of an all-in play if we're doing this. Alright, let's Lightning Bolt this. And then try and Mawloc it. If our opponent has a counter spell here, that's annoying, but we're playing around the Daze here. We're playing around double Daze, in fact, because we've got the Knight. Okay. So these can fight. We have to 2-for-1 ourselves to kill this. But I can live with that. And now we can play the Scavenging Ooze. I think that's fine. So we'll sacrifice Taiga into another Taiga, or I think we'll just turn the forest into a Taiga, actually. Alternatively, we've got 2 white sources here and 2 red sources. So if we get, I guess it doesn't really matter that much which one we get here. We can get the Karakas so that we have options in case they get an Atraxa into play. We could always start wastelanding them, but I don't feel that's where I want to be just yet. We could go and get a Windswept Heath and then crack that into a fetch land. Crack that into a dual land. That seems better. This just pumps up our Knight a little bit more. And now, if we get Savannah, we're more likely to be able to cast our white spell, which is like Solitude. So I think we're going to go for it that way around. Let's get this Ooze into play. Alright, so we need to not get hit by their reanimation return. Now, the only thing they can reanimate is the Daze or one of our creatures, because unless they have an Entomb here. An Orcish Baitemasters. Because Mawloc has text on it that doesn't always come up, but when it fights something, if it kills, if the thing it's fought dies, then it gets exiled. So being able to exile that troll was pretty good. Did cost us 2 cards, but if we can untap here without anything too cataclysmic happening, I think we are quite heavily favoured. All right, another land. That's good. That's not really a business spell. They attack with the Orc Army. We definitely let it through. All right, they don't have another Bowmasters unless they're really like double bluffing us. Excellent draw. What are we looking at doing here? I think we were just attacking with the Ooze, and then we have the ability to Solitude or do some Scavenging Ooze stuff. They're just going to take this, and that's fine. We're just going to let that happen. And then we can just do Knight of the Reliquary things. We can go and get a fetch land and thin our deck whilst growing our Knight of the Reliquary by 2. Or we can get access to 5 mana to hardcast a Solitude. A Ponder. That's fine. That's not what I'm bothered about right now. Reanimation shut off due to Scavenging Ooze. A Dalthy Voidwalker. Is that what I'm about right now? Do I want to just kill this? Or do I just want to start doing Scavenging Ooze things? I think I'm just going to do some Scavenging Ooze things for now. Let's get rid of their Grief. Let's get rid of our creatures. Let's get rid of our Knight. We don't want our opponent to reanimate that one. Do I want to take 1 damage here? It's kind of cost neutral. We'll go and get this Mawloc out as well. And then we will turn our Savannah into another Savannah. And then exile another card while we're here. So, get this. Crack this. Go and get ourselves a Savannah. They've only got 1 sorcery, so we'll get rid of that one. Not that it's necessarily going to matter, but they could have like a Murktide pivot. That's a thing you sometimes see. We don't get to grow our Knight actually by doing the fetch land there because of their Voidwalker, but that's fine. Okay, so we'll attack with this Scavenging Ooze, I think. And see what our opponent makes of it. This is half their life total if they don't block here. Okay, it's a pretty big chunk. Again, we're probably doing the Solitude in our opponent's end step because we don't want to get caught out by them reanimating something bigger, we need to keep up our Scavenging Ooze mana. So we'll just take the 3 and go to 8. If we Solitude our opponent's Bowmasters, does that just win us the game right there and then? But I don't really care if they've got a Bowmaster in play, so... Right, we'll tap this for green. Get rid of this one. Get the Taiga for now. Alright, let's get Solitude in there. They don't have 5 mana for a Force of Will, so they would have to do 2 cards to Force of Will this. I think if they had a Daze, they would have snapped it off by now and bounced their Sewers and get a bit more value. Alright, let's scoop it. So if we kill this, we can attack for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, which will be enough to kill them. But I think we're still killing the Doubtful Void Walker because we're so far ahead on board. Alright, I'm pretty happy with the way we've decided to approach this one, so let's just go back in. I'm starting to regret having all these lightning bolts instead of plows, though. It's a bit of a weird one, truth be told, but I think we'll keep it. We're going to need a little bit of help from the top of our deck, but we've got the option to endurance away the scary things. Like, I think we beat the fair plan generally with our deck. So we get to try and contest their reanimation if that's the thing that's going to happen. But it means that if we don't draw another green card, we have to not play our Swords to Plowshare, our Birds of Paradise. Okay. Now this is where this comes unstuck a little bit, because they can take our endurance out. And then they can take out something else. Although if they don't take our endurance, we have a choice of what we get to hit here. Because if they don't take our endurance or our birds, and then they try and reanimate this grief, are we then pitching 2 cards to stop them griefing us again? It ends up being kind of neutral, where we trade 2 cards for them. But we don't have to make that decision now because I've taken the grief. Because instead of them discarding a card from us and getting a 3-2, we just lose 2 extra cards. Not an ideal situation. Well, they did not reanimate it. Are we wastelanding our opponent, or are we playing the Birds of Paradise? What happens if we play Birds of Paradise? Not a lot. Because we don't really have anything to ramp into yet. So we're just going to take out their land. Now, they're probably going to have a Cycler. It's not going to matter that much. But it should keep them relatively threat-free for a turn. And then hopefully we can draw some more stuff and then work towards this Birds of Paradise doing something. But just resetting the game is probably going to be alright for us. And there's also the chance we just get to cheese our opponent here, where they don't have another land. But they're Brainstorm locked, so if they don't have another land, that'd be fun. They do have another land, right. We weren't doing it for the purposes of trying to cheese them, it's just a potential upside we had. Alright, so now we've got the reanimate here. This is probably going to take our... I don't know what they take here. Like, the Birds of Paradise is the only thing we can cast, but the other 2 cards are both better. So I imagine they probably take one of the better cards that also makes their reanimation spells better down the line. So someone like a Fury looks pretty good against our deck in general, but Solitude can kill some of their big scary monsters. Alright. Knight of the Reliquary. So that's something we can ramp into at least. Let's play this Birds of Paradise and watch it get Orcish Bowmastered. Oh no, a Daze. Sure. If they got a Wasteland to follow up, that would be very annoying for us. Not that we're going anywhere right now, but if this is all our opponent's got, just this grief and then a little bit of tempo-y type stuff, then we should be fine eventually. We'll take some hits. We just need to make sure that we're in a good spot by the time their second wave arrives. A Green Sun Zenith. So we could do an X equals 1 here to get a mana dork going. I don't hate that. So I think we get a Taiga here. So if they counterspell this, then they won't counterspell the Knight necessarily. Alright, so we're going to get another Birds of Paradise. They hit the last one, which made me, with a Daze, which makes me think that they don't have the Bowmasters. So this allows us to Knight of the Reliquary into Fury. Alright, our opponent's got a Dismember for it. That's fine. That's much better than it getting Bowmastered. Our opponent's left to 2 cards in hand. Now 3, because they've drawn for turn. Right, we will eventually beat this. Well, we're odds on to beat this. But our deck could always just malfunction and not find us an answer to a 3-2 creature. It's a case of, do they get to do the scarier things down the line? So we don't have Bojuka Bog in our deck because we've got a bunch of other stuff going on instead. But our opponent doesn't know that. So if we have a Knight of the Reliquary just sat in play, they're going to play around it, getting us Bojuka Bog. Which is a little bit cheeky, but I will take that one. A Green Sun Zenith. Would I rather have a Scavenging Ooze or a Knight of the Reliquary? think I'd rather have the Scavenging Ooze, if I'm being perfectly honest. Which is not a phrase you expect to hear in 2024, but here we are. We could just get the Mawloc and just kill the Grief. But I think I'd rather have the Ooze in play. And then we can deal with the Grief later on. We've got enough stuff to eat that we can basically buy ourselves an extra turn of life. And our opponent is only on 11 because of the Reanimate and Dismember. So maybe we can just get there in a race. I'd like to untap. Our opponent might have other ideas. So they might be incentivized to use the Reanimate now, because otherwise I'd just lose it anyway. Yep, so that's what they're doing. Okay, they're also reanimating our creature. Very rude. So a red card would be pretty useful here. We could just Fury away the 2 creatures and be in a reasonable state. Unfortunately, we don't get to do that. So what are we playing here? So we can go and get a Mawloc and kill this. Or we can play this Knight, which will be 4/4. So this can just block the Solitude quite comfortably. Okay. We're going to take another hit here. But we have a bigger creature than their Solitude. And then hopefully we can get like a Fury off and kill both their guys if they hold back with a Solitude. Alternatively, we've got the Mawloc to answer the Grief now anyway. We can just take another hit. And their life total is pretty low. So it's perfectly conceivable that we can just turn the corner and end the game very quickly. We just need to not get like Archon of Cruelty or something. They did not shuffle off that Ponder. But that might have been just because it had a land. And then this Ponder will most likely shuffle. That'd be my guess. Alright. This is going to take our answer potentially. But they have to kind of work out which one they want to take. So if we draw a land, then we can just cast this Fury as a spell without having to pitch cast it. And that's going to be very strong. So they might be inclined to take that. However, the Green Sun Zenith is a guaranteed answer to their threat that is actually killing us right now. Right, they've gone for the Fury. So we have a guaranteed answer for this Grief if we want it. Like just coming in for 3. We probably do have to fire off this Green Sun Zenith to kill the Mawloc now. As is the nature of things sometimes. Alright. We can play around a daze with our Knight. Alright, let's just get this Mawloc. Let's fight this Grief. So I'm going to hold back this Knight because it can block this and it can also threaten something like a Karakas or Bojuka Bog. Now again, we don't have the Bojuka Bog in our deck right now. I did not want to board out one of our spell slots for it. I think we maybe could have boarded out the Cradle for it. And that's reasonable. Alright, they would like to petty theft our Knight of the Reliquary. We don't really have anything exciting to do with this. We could go and get a fetch land so that we can't be wastelanded off of red mana. I think that's worth doing. It does cost us 1 life. Okay, so we're going to get a Wooded Foothills here. We can also get a Dryad Arbor if that's a thing that we feel the need to get, but that's not really going to help with our overall game plan, is it? So I don't think that's where I want to be. We'll just take the 3 here. That puts them to 9 and us to 3. They've got a 3 power creature in play. They've got a 3 power creature waiting in the wings. That also has wings. So there you go. Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Is that better for us than Knight of the Reliquary? Like, it's just going to trade with the Solitude. Whereas the Knight doesn't trade. But this will put us to 1. Which is Bowmasters. But we knew that going in here with this play. So, alright. Alright, we've got a big customer. They just got a land here. That's pretty worrying for us. Okay, Swamp Cycling a Troll. They could reanimate this, so it'll put them to 3. Just getting a basic Swamp. We've got Bowmasters here. I doubt they're attacking. They are attacking. What? That means they just got Bowmasters. They're just seeing what we're going to do. Or is this so they can get enough life to reanimate the Bowmasters? Or is this so they can reanimate our Solitude? Reanimating our Solitude is pretty good here. Our Horizon Canopy is not the most useful land we have right now. But if they reanimate the Solitude... Okay, they're going to use the Fury. Okay, that's a different kind of terrible for us. Sure. So that's going to take out our Knight now. And then we're looking at drawing Lightning Bolt. That buys us a turn. Yeah, it's all gone a little bit awry for us, isn't it? A Solitude. Okay, so let's draw a card with this. We're looking for lightning bolts here, so we're keeping up the Taiga. And also a white card keeps us alive. That's not a white card, but it does keep us alive, just in a very, very grim-looking way. We haven't Dryad Arbor yet this game. No. Okay. Here comes the chump blocker. This is a pretty devastating situation to be in. Because now we need to find an answer to the Borrower and the Fury. Not easy to do. Or they can just play a Bowmaster and put us out of our misery. Yup, that does it too. Yeah, we just couldn't quite get there. The sort of second round of Fury, the second round of Grief they had was a little bit too much for us. And our creatures are too good. They've reanimated our creatures and managed to beat us through it, which is a bit awkward. Alright, 0-1, but let's go to round 2. Well, our selection of lands on hand does not fill me with a lot of joy. But if we can find another land, it'll be good. Are we going to keep with 2 draw steps to find a mana source? We just need 1 mana source and then we're like popping here. Alright, I'm going to give it a go. Like, we've got 22 lands in the deck and literally any land bar the Dryad Arbor does it for us. Snow-covered plains. Soul Guide Lantern. Alright, well I'm not about that life, so... My instant reaction is some kind of like painter, like 1-0 white painter deck. Okay, this works too. I think we have to go and get... are we getting... I think we have to get the basic forest here, otherwise we could just be in a whole bunch of trouble. Alright, let's go and get the Dryad Arbor. So we have the Beanstalk, and we can start drawing extra cards using our Solitude if we need to, or we can just jam another Beanstalk and then try and draw 2 cards with our Solitude, depending on how juicy the targets we're hitting are. Alright, Ancient Tomb, Archon of Emeria. Okay, that's fine by me. We will not reveal this. Let's play Up the Beanstalk and draw a card. We did not find a land, that is sad. Okay, so we're probably pitching this Triumph to this Archon, but we'll see what our opponent does with their turn first. Because I'm happy to take 2 and then just get a bonus card here. Okay, Wasteland. If they take out our Dryad Arbor, that means I'm much more inclined to try and kill this guy now. They haven't played a spell yet, though. Which kind of makes me want to take the 2 and see what happens. Because if they play something that definitely needs an answer more than this, then... okay. Let's pitch cast this. Looking for our land. That was not it. Let's get rid of this little friend. Okay. Did we find a land? Did you find a land? We did find a land. Not the one I wanted, though. Not the one I wanted. I think we still end up playing it out here. But if we just sequenced things differently, we could have... yeah, so if we knew we were drawing specifically Cradle, then we could have waited our turn Solitude and then did the Cradle. Maybe we should have just waited for the Solitude if we weren't doing it at their end step anyway. A Batter Skull. Yeah, I think that was a bit loose of me doing the Solitude at the end step if we're going to be doing it to kill their creature anyway. Okay. But then this wouldn't be tapping for mana anyway because it'd be tapped underneath the Archon. Okay, so our deck's just not doing anything, which is definitely one of the concerns I had regarding our mana base when we started this one up. Alright, in comes the Knight, sorry, not the Knight, the Phyrexian Germ. We're the ones with the Knight. Okay, the One Ring, that's drawing some cards for them. Alright, I think we're going to be a bit of a punching bag this game. Okay, so I think our opponent's playing the sort of mono-white sort of initiative-ish deck. Okay, so what is this doing for us? We want to get rid of this Germ token somehow. Okay, so we need to go and get a white source and a red source. That's the Plateau. And I don't think we've got the time to play this Beanstalk. I think we need to get something on board. Which I think means we're playing out this Scavenging Ooze. Which we can grow a little bit because we've got Dryad Arbor in the graveyard. And then next turn our Cradle is going to actually tap for mana. And then we can try and do a little bit more with our time there. We can't quite get our Scavenging Ooze big enough to deal with this Germ, but we're not a million miles away from being able to do that. But we are not going to outpace our opponent's One Ring card advantage, is kind of the issue here. A Swords to Plowshares. Would I like to gain 1 life right now? I think it might be important to do so. We don't really care about stuff in our graveyard, so let's just get rid of the one that's a creature but not a land. So we can keep the land in for the purposes of our Knight of the Reliquary. We just use that to gain 1 life. Alright, we're going to lose our Plateau here to the Wasteland. Yikes. Alright, our opponent was thinking about doing something, but I think they're just going to hold up and do an Urza Saga activation on our turn. Yeah, our trying to draw a land there did not really work out for us. Okay, so we're now in a very similar spot to before, but we only have 1 spell we can... Well, we have 2 spells. We can cast a Lightning Bolt, which will not be big enough to kill their Urza Saga token, or we can cast this Up the Beanstalk. So I think we have to get... We don't have a Plateau left in our deck, so it's a red source. Is it a Taiga or is it a Savannah? I think we need the Taiga for the red mana here. That makes the most sense to me. I think we're just going to get kind of ruined here, if I'm being perfectly honest. But we've got some Beanstalks. If we can string together some Furies and Solitudes, when we get some... Okay, another land. Not unhappy to see that one. If we make a Knight of the Reliquary, it's going to be a big one. It's going to be, what, 7? Because our entire graveyard is just lands now. Alright, so they're making a 4-4. And then it's going to be a 5-5 and it's going to be a 6-6. So if they've got a Shadow Spear, they can kill us this turn. But maybe they don't have a Shadow Spear. I've got a feeling that they're going to have a Shadow Spear though. Alright, there's a Construct. No, a Mox Opal. Does that mean they already have the Shadow Spear in hand? That's equally as good here. Crucible of Worlds. They're just going to wasteland us. Alright, I don't want to play this one. I've seen enough. I have seen enough. Okay. So, things I am interested in. Force of Vigor and Outland Liberator seem pretty reasonable here. More removal creatures. These also seem good. Triumph of St. Katherine does not seem amazing here, but it's probably okay. Lightning Bolt. It can kill their Archons, and if they're playing the build that I think they're playing, it's got Thalias in it and sometimes has the 3 mana guy that checks your hand whose name I've forgotten. I think we need to keep the Collector Ouphe to mess with our opponent's One Ring as well. I think the Endurance can go. The Mawloc probably isn't as good as the things we're bringing in. So I think we can take out a couple of Mawlocs here. Leave one in to tutor for. Do we want these Forth Eorlingases? They do pitch to Solitude, which is kind of important. Do we need a full set of Force of Vigors here? Like, we've got to worry about their as a Saga, but we can't hit the One Ring anyway, so maybe we don't need the full 4. If we're bringing in this Outland Liberator as well, Scavenging Ooze can scale up, but I don't think that's what I'm caring about at the moment. Maybe it is just the Force of Vigor. I'm just trying to work out, is Force of Vigor better than Outland Liberator? I'm not sure it is, so I think we're going to go along these sorts of lines. So I'm not that impressed by the Triumph here, but if we do just like jam it into play super early, it can outclass their creatures. What does our hand do? It ramps into turn 2 Knight of the Reliquary. And then we have double Wasteland. So we don't have to worry about Urza's Saga, which is the main win condition of this deck when I played it on the channel a few times. Our opponent's playing. So this needs to get us a white source. So it has to be the Savannah here, because we want to cast the Knight next turn. And then we'll go and get ourselves a Dryad Arbor. And next turn we have Knight. And we can hopefully string together a win from Knight plus 2 Wastelands. And obviously another Zenith to do whatever we need. If our opponent plays a Wasteland, sorry, not Wasteland, an Urza Saga, then I might be tempted to Wasteland them and then get our thing going. Okay, so they've said no to our little friend there. That's sad. But it is what it is. I think I'm going to get a Birds of Paradise here. Right, so we get the Birds of Paradise. We could get the Hierarch, but we kind of want red for our Fury. We'd rather not play the Windswept Heath in case we need to go and fetch a Savannah or something. I'd rather leave that choice till later in case our opponent wastelands us in an awkward way. A Mox Diamond. So our opponent's going to jump ahead of the curve a little. City Trade is going to the bin. Another Mox Diamond. Okay. Crucible of Worlds. Okay, that's bad if they have a Wasteland. A Pithing Needle. This is going to name our Wasteland, presumably. No, why would they name that? They're going to name the Knight of the Reliquary. They're not going to care about our Wasteland. Yep, there's Knight of the Reliquary named. Sure. So I don't get to tutor for things, but that's fine. Would I rather start drawing cards, or would I rather just have a beefcake? Quite like having a beefcake in play. Let's just get a threat going. We don't really want to see a Wasteland from our opponent here. They've only got 2 cards, so hopefully that's not one of them. Right, City of Traders from the graveyard. Nettle Cyst. How big is this going to be? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh yeah, because I got the Ancient Den as well. Alright, Anarchon of Emeria. Okay. So our Wastelands aren't great, but we can use them to grow our Knight, if that's the thing we're interested in. So we can play... No, we can't play the Fury right now because of the Archon of Emeria. Interesting. But we can Lightning Bolt the Archon. And then we can deploy this Up the Beanstalk. Alright, so we've got another land here. So we can make our creature a 7/7 on blocks. So we can Wasteland our Wasteland. That puts 2 lands in the graveyard. The 3rd land is the Windswept Heath, and then we can block and then activate our... No, we can't activate our Knight because they've got the Pith Needle. Alright, so we don't get to do that now. So we might just have to take 6, but we've got a lot of life to work with right now. So let's just sit back and eat some delicious germ damage and hope they don't have a particularly strong follow-up. If they have something like a Seasoned Dungeoneer, that might actually work out well for us because we could Fury out of the way and then get the Monarch and then chump block the Phyrexian Germ here. Actually, we won't even have to chump block it, will we? Because the Knight will be a 7 once we have both of these fetch lands going. Alright. And there's a Saga. That's a thing I am happy to spend a Wasteland on. Like, it's not great for us, but it does slow them down. They will get it back, but that's a problem for later. So, I think the play here is crack this for a Taiga, play this, crack this for a Plateau, cast this for red, 1, 2, 3. Leaving up the Wasteland so we can make our guy bigger if that's the thing we're interested in doing. Alright. This draws us a card and makes us a big guy. It's not the most exciting, but it's fine. So we take this one out. That buys us a bit of time. We get to attack for 6 here. And then we can take 6, but then we have 12 on the crackback. And then that's lethal with a Lightning Bolt. So they're going to need to find something off the top or stop attacking. And if they stop attacking, we can attack with a bigger creature than them, so they might be inclined to chump block. They're coming in or not? They're not coming in. We got them scared. Okay, so we attack with the Knight. Do we have anything good that we can find with the Green Sun Zenith? We can go and get... we took out the Scavenging Ooze and the Endurances. We can't beat their Crucible that way, but we can go and get the little guy. What's his name? I can't remember what his name is. Alright, we'll attack with this guy. Outland Liberator is the guy. Let's check out this as a Saga. 4 through 7 damages. We're not going to be able to overpay here. Let's go and get this guy. Outland Liberator. I think that makes more sense than anything else right now. We were 1 shy of killing them if we got this and blew up the Nettle Cyst. Alright. Let's get rid of this Crucible. And we're holding up Lightning Bolts. Actually, no, we weren't 1 shy because we had the Lightning Bolt. Yeah, we could have just killed our opponent there. That was sloppy. You see, I don't play a lot of Knight of the Reliquary decks. I'm also suffering from cripplingly bad vertigo this week, which is lovely. Alright. Do I want to have an extra Force of Vigor to stop things getting out of hand? Do I potentially want this Scavenging Ooze? These are things that I am going to consider. I think we'll drop a Birds for a Force of Vigor here. Because Force of Vigor can help us out of a jam against some Urza Saga tokens. As well as being able to hit the Crucible. Kind of wish that Force of Vigor was 5 mana though. Just so we can get some extra cards out of it. Well, this hand is unplayable. This hand is pretty close to unplayable. I think we have to go lower. We've got the lands there, which I want, but... Alright, this is a much more keepable hand. I don't really want this Dryad Arbor. But it is a green card to pitch to Force of Vigor. But then again, so is Green Sun Zenith. Alright, we'll throw back this Dryad Arbor, and I guess we're throwing back one of the Zeniths. Can't say I'm in love with this hand. But it's a 5-card hand that gets to interact with our opponent twice. Alright, there's a Mox Diamond. We're going to see here. A Crucible of Worlds. Okay. So we're probably going to want to blow this up in our opponent's turn. Right, that's something we can do. Okay, so would I rather get another mana source going? I think I would. Crack this. I think it's the Taiga that we get here because we've got a lot of red spells like the Fable, Lightning Bolts, stuff like that. So I think it is the Taiga, and we use that to go and get our little friend here. So we get the Arbor this way. And then on our opponent's upkeep, we'll pitch the Outland Liberator to the Force of Vigor and just smash both of these so they don't get the Ezra Saga back. Alright. We have an answer to the next creature they play. Oh no, that's 2 creatures. Shadow Spear. Yep, that's pretty good. Alright, deck. We're going to need you to be kind to us here. Okay, I'm not unhappy to see that one. Dryad Arbor is in attack mode. There it goes. Alright, the Ezra Saga ticking away. Yep, they played a Sea of Traitors. Now they've made themselves a 2-2. They can equip the Shadow Spear. And that'll nip our attacks in the bud. We don't get to have any cool lands to grab here. We've got none of the Surveil lands in our deck. Okay, one more land and we can start hard casting Solitudes. So I think we're supposed to hold on for that rather than just pitch cast this one. Which means we're going to take 4 or 5 this turn depending on what our opponent's got going on. Most likely to be 5. Just depends what artifacts they have left in their deck here. If they've already got the Shadow Spear out, they've probably gotten rid of... Okay, so you have a Mox Opal, that's fine. An Archon of Emeria. Doesn't matter if we get this now. I guess so. So this wants to be a Savannah. This makes casting a Solitude a lot more difficult. But if we draw like a Up the Beanstalk, we can play the Beanstalk and then our opponent's turn we can Solitude something. But, okay, Fable the Mirror Breaker. That is worth casting for sure. Okay, so they've got a lot of guys over there. So, this is 9, 10, 11 damage. Yikes. 5 mana. Golos. That's cool. What terrifying land are they going to find with it? I haven't seen Golos in a hot minute. Sweet card. Oh, just another Ezra Saga. Yeah, sure. That's pretty good. What are we supposed to do in this situation? We can't let all this damage through. Because this is lethal damage, right? What are we chump blocking with? I think we're supposed to chump block with this token here. Because the Dryad Arbor is definite mana, whereas the Shaman has to attack to give us a treasure that then probably doesn't do anything. Yikes. Fable or Mirror Breaker. Get out of here. I think this is the only thing we can get rid of here. Forth Eorlingas. So we can kill the Archon. Then we can make 2 guys. They attack. Then we die. If we don't attack with the guys, we get to block this and this, and then we die to this. If we Solitude to kill this in our opponent's turn, then we have a chance to survive. This seems bad. Alright. So we're going to make 2 horses, and then we're going to pass. Yeah, I'm not really sure what the strategy here for us winning this game is, because they've also got another Saga ticking. Yikes. Triple Saga hand is a little sketchy for us. Okay, this is just going to pump their guys even more. Net assist, sure. Just have more guys. Yikes. Alright, this is our spell for turn. Goodbye, Construct. We have to go to blocks here. Block these 2. And I don't know, we don't have any like big haymakers that can stop us from losing this game. We get to copy our Dryad Arbor if we survive one more turn, but I don't think we are going to survive one more turn. No, we got massively outclassed on that one. And our mana base, especially in the first game, was the thing to beat us, which is something I was certainly concerned about with this deck. And I think we might run into that problem again, but let's go to round 3 and see if we can avoid it. Alright, we're having an unplayable opening hand again, so let's mulligan this one. Alright, this hand seems a lot nicer. I think we want to get rid of a Plateau here. Uh-oh. Okay. Our hand is not totally soft to what our opponent's doing, but I'm not feeling confident now. Like, if they've got a reanimation spell for this, then our hand is going to be pretty brutalized. So they got rid of the Up the Beanstalk, which means our opponent... Oh, okay. There's a Saga. That's not quite what I was expecting here. They pitched Living Death. Okay. Our opponent is doing some gaming over there, that's for sure. Living Death. Pretty cool. Yep, cycling the Oliphant. So they're probably going to be playing a bunch of stuff like this. You know, cycling a bunch and then just casting the Living Death. They might also have Living End in their deck. Or they might just be using rituals and things, so they can power out the Living Death. Chalice the Void where X equals 1. Okay. My response to this is bolt you in the face. I do not believe our opponent is playing rituals anymore. Chrome Mox. Okay, so they're not playing Living End. They're just playing Living Death and some accelerants. Troll of Khazad-dûm. Mox Opal. Alright. 1, 2, 3, 4. So they can cast it next turn if that's what they want to do. We're a little bit shy of casting the things we want to cast here. Yeah, this is a little awkward for us. Well, I guess we'll play the Windswept Heath here. I don't want to get one of our 1-drops. We don't have any particularly good 1-drops to get in this situation. If we had another Zenith, then sure, I wouldn't mind doing the first one and then using the second one to get Scavenging Ooze with more mana up. But that's not really where we're at here. Right, we're going to crack this now to dodge any sort of Pithing Needle shenanigans. And do we want white or do we want red? I think we're just going to get the Taiga here so it's harder for them to waste us off of Mawloc or anything. If they do get a Pithing Needle and name Windswept Heath, for example, we can still Mawloc. I have to have a Wasteland as well and all that sort of jazz. Alright, Shadow Spear. Alright. Solitude isn't really the one we're after. So let's Zenith here for the Collector Ouphe and shut off their mana and the Shadow Spear. And then this means that our opponent basically isn't going to be casting Living Death anytime soon. But they have a 5/5, which is something we will have to deal with. But we can deal with that next turn, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. No, we can't deal with the next turn. It's going to be another turn after that. But if we find some mana, we can hard cast a Solitude. If we find a white card, we can always pitch cast it. We've got a little bit of time to work with. Not the most, but we've got some time. We're going to see a removal spell here. Alright, this looks like a Murderous Cut because they're taking time to cast this one. Murderous Cut seems weird in your Living Death deck though. So maybe it's not that. Maybe Living Death is just like a thing they have, not their... Okay, yeah. They're just going to do this. Get back the Grief. So this Grief can take our Solitude or our Mawloc. So we're going to find out what sort of gamer our opponent is by what one they take here. The Mawloc will guarantee to kill this Grief next turn. Alright, they've decided they don't want that to happen. Fair enough. A Lightning Bolt. That does also kill the Grief here. So I think we just fire this off now. Oh, wait, it doesn't kill it because of the... what am I doing? What am I playing today? Alright, so we can trade into this Grief if we want to, but that will turn on our opponent's artifact mana. Yeah, I don't really want to trade off just yet, but this is a 2-turn clock from our opponents. There's no point keeping the Lightning Bolt in hand either. I guess no point casting it either, but... Alright, so do I want to trade 1, 2, 3, 4? So we could trade into this guy using our Dryad Arbor here. That would leave us needing a white source to cast a Solitude next turn, if that's the route we go. But it buys us a whole extra turn. I think that's what we're doing. Surprise. This will unlock their artifact mana, but that's not the problem right now. The problem right now is the creatures that are beating us down. Alright, they left us with the Dryad Arbor, as I expected. If we draw a white source, we can get some white done. Sure, you can equip there. That's fine. Can we draw the white source for the Solitude? No, we can't. I don't really want to block with our Dryad Arbor, but we might have to. Okay, we did not draw what we needed to there. Are they going to play an artifact? Artifact is very good here. A grief. That's also very good. Yikes. Okay. So if we hadn't have fired off this lightning bolt, we could have had this fury. And that would have been something. So how do we get through what our opponents... Well, we do get to cast a fury. Red, red, 1, 2, 3. This kills the grief. But then we die to the trample, don't we? Yeah. Blah. It didn't matter that we punted with the lightning bolt, but it doesn't feel great. So Force of Vigor seem good here. Endurances seem good here. Solitude seems good here. So there's a fury, but again we're running that awkward line of our opponent having options to mess with us in terms of reanimating our own creatures. I don't want to bring in Teeg in this matchup. Do we want these Knight of the Reliquaries? If we're bringing in Bojuka Bog, then I guess we do. Triumph of St. Katherine doesn't feel like this is the deck for it. I like having the Mawlocs, at least one Mawloc. But we've got so much stuff to get rid of. I think we do have to just... Maybe we are bringing just out the Knights, or is it the Fables? Maybe we're playing around some of their... Like, the lightning bolts are probably only going to hit their griefs anyway. So maybe we don't want the lightning bolts at all. These things we can still get off of our green sign, and they pitched a Force of Vigor. That seems fine. What do we reckon? That's alright. If we were trying to kill smaller creatures, Fury has that covered anyway. Fury can kill the Oliphant as well. That's a 6/4 if I remember rightly. Alright, we'll roll with this. We still have the Bojuka Bog, because you've got 2 Knights in the deck. Scavenging Ooze is a pretty good Magic the Gathering card in this particular matchup. But if they grief us, that's annoying. But they only have 4 griefs in their deck, so they might not have one on turn 1. And also, they're not playing Thoughtseize and stuff because they're playing Chalice for 1. Okay, I guess we begin with a Savannah here. And then next turn we can play Scavenging Ooze with green mana up. And provided we get to that point, I think we're okay. We chalice for 1 or a couple of cycles or something. Alright, they've got the grief. So we're going to lose our Scavenging Ooze. That is a shame. We had a plan. I think our new plan is to Wasteland our opponent. They didn't do anything with their Ancient Tomb, so we could go and get something like the Noble Hierarch here, but I think we're better off getting like a real threat. Or getting an Endurance in a few turns' time. A Swamp, so we're not wastelanding them this turn. They didn't do anything with 2 mana, so I think we will have a turn where we're less likely to get hit by anything. Right, let's play this out. And past we have an Endurance that we can fire off. If they've got something like an Animate Dead, that could be a thing that they're trying to throw at us here. Get our grief. Do I want to play out this Endurance now? Or do I want to hold this Endurance back? Like, we need a clock. I think I'm okay to do this. Let's get Taiga. Cast this. Like, we don't know how safe it's going to be in our hand anyway. Force of Vigor. Let's attack with this. Right, so now we can go and get the Knight, which can access our Bojuka Bog at any time. We've got hardcast Force of Vigor if they play some as a Saga type stuff. But we've also just got like 8 power. We can make it 9 by using our Wasteland. Alright, they want to grief us, pitching Orcish Bowmasters. Okay, that's good information to have. Sure, you can take our Force of Vigor. Okay, they were just getting information before scooping. So now we know about the Orcish Bowmasters. Are we more inclined to keep in some like lower removal, like the bolts and things? I don't think so, purely because we've seen the Chalice and Fury kind of does that job anyway. We do have Force of Vigor to smash a Chalice, but we're more using these so that we don't get killed by Saga tokens, I think. I like how I sideboarded here. I'm just going to go back in, I think. having Bojuka Bog just as an extra land doesn't even seem the worst given our somewhat shaky mana base. This hand, it's very slow. Obviously we have pitch spells, but is that really what we want here? I do like the fact that we have mana to work with, but our opponent reanimating some of these is a little bit worrying. This doesn't really interact with a lot of our opponent's game plan. I think we have to mulligan for something a little bit better. Alright, this is better. Can we keep this, throw back Solitude? I don't think we have enough white cards in our deck, if I'm being perfectly honest. Alright. An Urza's Saga. Okay, I would have liked the Wasteland that we had in the other hand, but... Okay, we're just going to get hit by a Grief here. So, they have a choice here. They can get rid of our Graveyard Hate or they can get rid of our Artifact Hate. But they can't take both with the mana they currently are displaying. Right, they've got rid of the birds. That's interesting. Annihil Spellbomb. Sure. That's interesting. Like, it has some text against our Knight and things, but that's not really the end of the world. I assume it's just a thing that they have as part of their Urza Saga package rather than something they specifically wanted for us. It's like a card that's fine that they might as well keep. Right, I don't think we're getting the Dryad Arbor here. I think we're just going to get ourselves some lands. Deploy our friend. So Taiga, Savannah, I think is where I want to be. We want to make sure we have lots of green mana if we can find ourselves a Scavenging Ooze. So what this Collector Ouphe does is it stops our opponent from being able to make a Shadow Spear that can equip. Now it's only a 2/2, so it's not the most difficult thing in the world to remove. Alright, so now we're going to see another construct. But if they're relying on this finding them some mana, then that's something that it doesn't do. Alright, there's the Badlands. So we're going to get crunched for 4 here. Which is slightly more than we're able to handle right now. A Fury. That is a good card. We can clean one of these out and then have an Endurance. That seems pretty good to me. Like the Fable, not so great underneath our Collector Ouphe anyway because the treasure tokens don't do anything. Alright, let's take this one out so we can get through some damage. Like, we're not blocking with this Ouphe anyway. Let's just come in and smash with this. We've got the Endurance if we want to. We can use it to clean up this construct and get this grief out of their graveyard. They do know about this Endurance though. They didn't take it earlier. I guess the Nile Spellbomb is just something they also want for the purposes of casting Living Death actually. Because if they have a Living Death, they don't want us to have a graveyard. So yeah, Nile Spellbomb seems an important part of that. Alright, so they went to find a Badlands with their Troll. They played their Badlands. And now we're waiting to see what happens next. A Broadside Bombardiers. That's not one I'm a big fan of. But we don't really get to do anything about it. What are you going to do? We don't get to block it because that's Menace. Are you going to throw anything? Throw this, killing our Collector Ouphe. Sure. Opponent's got 1 card in hand. I think to be mana efficient here in case we draw something that slaps pretty hard, we need to get this Endurance down. Just get rid of their graveyard while we're at it. Broadside Bombardiers. Up the Beanstalk. Yes, please. We have Lightning Bolts, so we're going to leave this Taiga up. Oh, we don't have Lightning Bolts. What am I talking about? We got rid of them. Okay, so we can go and get a Dryad Arbor to block with here. But our opponent can throw something with the Bombardiers to do it. But it would have to be the Construct or the Shadow Spear. Which are not things I mind them throwing away. Right, so we turn this into a Dryad Arbor. Our opponent will throw Shadow Spear or the Construct at it. Otherwise we get the double block off and kill the Broadside. Which is by far the scariest permanent on the board right now. Yep. So they're losing the Construct to do that. So we only take 2 damage this turn. Can't block because of Menace. We maybe live to fight another day. Fable and Mirror Breaker. It's a good card. A Fury would be an excellent draw here. A Wooded Foothills, you say? Right, let's play our own Fable here. This gives us 2 creatures. So we play out this Wooded Foothills. So let's just do some thinking. If our opponent attacks... So the reason we play out Wooded Foothills there is in case we get like a Mawloc or something, we want to make it bigger or whatever. So if we hold back on blocks, our opponent attacks, they sacrifice the treasure token with their Goblin Shaman, use that to pin down our Shaman. We don't get to block the Bombardiers. We then block their Shaman. Alternatively, they make that attack. We block with our endurance. Then they, I guess they have to do it beforehand. Okay, yeah. So this will force the treasure throw to kill our shaman, or they'll have to sacrifice their Shadow Spear, which is sort of treading water a little bit. A mountain from our opponent. All right, so equipping this to the shaman. All right, so they're creating a treasure. Looks like our opponent was about to cast a spell there. So they're giving us the potential double block on the broadside here. So what are those? What do they have? Well, they can force through an additional 2 damage, but I think that leaves us in a fine spot. They can fire 2 damage at our endurance, so that the broadside takes that instead of the shaman. All right, they're going for the. Looks like they're just going to kill the shaman here, lose their broadside, and deal -3. I think you're better off putting the Shadow Spear on the broadside, attacking with the shaman, throwing the treasure token at the shaman. Although we don't know what the last card in our opponent's hand is, which could change everything. Hopefully it doesn't, but it could. Alright. Does our opponent have an Orcish Bowmasters? I don't think we're winning with this Wasteland anyway. So, okay. Force of Vigor. Pretty good, as it turns out. I think we'll just pass and see what our opponent's up to over there. We can start like making additional endurances in a couple of turns' time. Alright, let's see what the thing they had. A Shoalrid's Edict. Each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature. Well, we only have 1 creature, so let's see what our opponent draws here. We take 2 this turn. We get to blow up their Fable and their Shadow Spear. Crack this. Do we want Plateau here? Just to round out all of our sources. Seems fine. Get rid of this and this because it's an enchantment creature. Next time we get a 2/2, which worst case scenario can block their shaman token. And then if we find a thing that does something, then we'll be in a reasonable position. Like a Mawloc would be excellent. A Karakas would be not so good. Are we playing this Karakas out? Or are we keeping it in hand as a mystery card? I think we keep it in hand as a mystery card. Maybe our opponent will fire off a Grief or something, thinking they're going to be getting some useful information or whatever to make their attacks with. Alright, we will be blocking this. I don't really want to be up 1 when we've already seen Orcish Bowmasters out of our opponent. And if we don't block now, we try and block next turn, our creature might die before then anyway. Alright. A Solitude would be a fine draw here. Okay, I will take that. Let's play this. And if they play a creature, we can Solitude. Otherwise, we can just make a Solitude and start attacking for some damages. Feels like our opponent's got either a Bowmasters or an Edict. So I'm not going to just jam this Solitude straight out. A Fury. Again, I don't think I want to do that. I think I just want to kill their creatures where possible. Right, Swamp. A Doubtful Voidwalker. Alright, this is kind of what we've been waiting for. Alright. Let's get rid of this Voidwalker. If we can turn this sideways and gain 3 health, I'm going to feel a lot happier. Bash. Okay. What would I rather have left over mana-wise? 2 green mana or like 1 red mana? I think it's 2 green mana here. Right, let's just draw another card, make another guy. Shoot nothing with it. It's just a cantrip in 5 mana 3/3 double striker. So we've got 9 damage coming in next turn. And we've got Fury if they play any creatures out. This is what our deck feels like when it works, I think. Fable of the Mirror Breaker. We can obviously kill this and bash for 9. We'll see what we draw. Force of Vigor. Yeah, we get to do it all here, don't we, right? So we get to go Fury for red. Red. And this. This draws us a card. There's a Scavenging Ooze. That's what we want. Kill this. Go to attacks. And we can hit the Fable. Or we can see if anything else comes out that we're more interested in. Maybe I'm not supposed to let them have that selection. But we can hit something like an Animate Dead. Something like that. Living End is kind of what they're hoping for here by the looks of it. Things. What does that give them? 1, 2. Just gives them 2 creatures back and gives us more creatures. An Oliphant, sure. What does that give us back? It gives us Dryad Arbor, Endurance, Collector Ouphe, Birds of Paradise. Alright, looks like we're getting the Living Death here. Living Death. Do we want to blow up this Fable and Breaking now? Let's float. I guess actually we don't need to float because we're about to get a bunch of creatures back anyway. Alright, so this kills one of the Oliphants. And this deals 6, 7, 8 damage. It doesn't quite kill. We should have done this all the way around so the Oliphant gets shuffled in. That's my bad. So you can attack with broadside. We can definitely block the broadside. But then they can throw this at us for 8. So if they've got an Orcish Bowmaster in hand, they can't cast it because of the Ancient Tomb mana. Let's just get rid of this now. Really wish I'd have done this earlier, to be honest with you. Alright. We got a match. We're on the board. Not playing the cleanest today. We should have definitely smashed that first. But there's only so much medication can do to my state right now. Alright. We're on the board though, so no reverse trophy. Let's go to round 4 and see if we can turn this into a positive record. Once again, the mana base of our deck does not look great to me. Let's mulligan. That thing that I just said. That again. Alright, this is one we can keep. We keep this. So we keep Spell, Spell, Spell. Get rid of this. And we have a choice. We can keep this Solitude or we can keep... do I think we're going to draw more lands? How important is keeping this Solitude in our hand going to be, do we think? I don't think we can afford pitch cards because we're already starting on 5, so... I'd rather have additional lands and not get just clowned on by a Wasteland. We've got 2 spells we can cast. A basic Plains for our opponent. Not unexpected. They're a Yorion companion as well. Okay, so we're actually on taxes. Interesting. We don't see a lot of taxes anymore, but you also don't see a lot of 5-colour Yorions, so it's always a bit of a mystery. I do not want to get Wasteland off of white, so I'm going to play this Taiga out. We have 2 Lightning Bolts. They're pretty good cards in this matchup. Their Vial is ticking up. There is a Wasteland. There is an activation of the Wasteland. Okay. Would I rather hold up a Lightning Bolt or Green Sun Zenith for a Mana Dork? We could go and get the Dryad Arbor and hold up the Lightning Bolt. That seems fine here. Now we want to get to Knight of the Reliquary mana. So if they put in a Mother of Runes, we kind of have to bolt that because otherwise our other bolt is useless. Right, they did not put in a Mother of Runes. We do not get to kill a Thalia if they play one right now. Alright, what have you got, opponent? Is it the Thalia? It is. Okay. Do you have a land? They do, and it's another Wasteland. I was thinking to myself, they're a 75-card deck. They're less likely to have multiple Wastelands. But I thought by not saying out loud, I wouldn't manifest it. Unfortunately, that's not how it's planned out. I think we do this now before any Flicker Wisp shenanigans happens and it gets blinked in response. Just take out their guy. I think our mana base is going to give us some real problems in this matchup. Apart from the normal problems it's been giving us so far anyway. Okay, Richard and Port. And 3-drop is going to be a Recruiter of the Guard. It could be a Recruiter into Thalia. Extraction Specialist. Okay, that's better than Recruiter in this particular situation. Okay. So we can blow up the Extraction Specialist or the Thalia. But we're going to need some more mana here. So we're going to have to hit this Thalia if we're ever going to try and cast any spells this game. So goodbye, Guardian of Thraben. I think it's probably going to be coming back either as another one or whatever. Okay, a Solitude. That's a spell that we can cast. It only costs us our creature. But if we find a land and can play this Fable, that'd be helpful. But it's going to be a while because we're just going to get locked underneath this Richard and Port. The triple mana denial cards is a lot for us to get through when we've got a mana base. It is definitely taking the mick a little bit. Alright, Plains. We're going to get bashed for 3 now. So our opponent's going to start making inroads at our life total. At least if this is the way this game's going, it's not going to be a long grindy one necessarily. They're just going to beat us down over like 4 or so turns. So I imagine they're going to add more threats to the board. Okay. We've got a Foothills. So if we can play a Knight of the Reliquary, it will be bigger than our opponent's creatures. Because it will be a 5/5. And Death and Taxes tends not to have much in the way of large creatures. Like, they run Battle of Bywater in their deck. Mother of Runes. Okay. Is this something we need to answer? Unsure. We could just answer the Extraction Specialist and just hope that we can mount a big enough offensive around what they've got going on. Alright, so we're almost certainly losing a land to this Rishdan Port this turn. They've only got 2 cards in hand left, so if we can draw a Fury, that would be aces. Oh, okay. I'll draw this good card that's good. I need to say the cards I want to draw more often, apparently. We don't have to choose which one we kill. We can have both. No Flicker Wisp either. That's beautiful to see. We still don't get to commit anything to board without another land. So we're just trying to find a land before our opponent finds another port or a wasteland. Karakas, we don't really care about that one. But it does give them the Yorion loop later on, which is going to be a little bit difficult for us to beat. But a well-timed Solitude can get rid of that, but then we need to mount an offensive at some point. We just feel like we're a million miles away from that all the time. Right, so put Yorion into hand. Next turn, the vial ticks up to 5, and then we have to deal with that whole thing. Our opponent's got cards in hand. I have to imagine the cards they've got in hand that they're not playing are removal spells. Right, they're going to have a plow or something in hand. Alright, that's a spell we don't get cast. But at least it's something that's pretty reasonable. If we have to pitch our knight, we've at least got a good follow-up if we can find the land. Alright, so they've got a Yorion. We need them to tap their Karakas for something. I seem unlikely to do that. But at least it should be a relatively quick death if we're getting attacked by the giant bird serpent itself. Yep, they're drawing cards with their Horizon Canopy and passing to us. They also have the ability to put in Solitude off of the Ether Vial, so that's the other thing they might have instead of a plow. Because we just haven't given them a worthwhile target for that yet. Let's float white here. We're not going to use it, but make them think about plow. A Green Sun Zenith. I would like to cast a Green Sun Zenith. So, given our hand, I think the Savannah is more important here. Alright, let's go and get ourselves a Birds of Paradise. I think it is the birds rather than the Hierarch here. Being able to chump block the Yorion for a turn might prove useful. But they're going to start making some inroads into our life total in a big way. And we just have to hope that they drop their Karakas at some point. Maybe they'll get greedy, trying to get some sort of value loop going, and we could just... Okay, they have a Solitude. Okay, sure. So now they have a value loop that they might want to do stuff with the Karakas and Yorion. Alternatively, we could find a Wasteland and maybe hit the Karakas that way. But it just feels every turn is squeezing us further and further into oblivion. Which is what Death and Taxes wants to do. And it's having a bit of a rough time in the meta right now, so it's kind of nice in a way to see it getting to do its thing, even if it is strangleholding us. So the next creature we play will die to a Solitude. So playing the Fable would be ideal because the creature is only part of the card. So we'd at least still get something out of it. We kind of need the Knight to be our white card. Alright, our opponent's going to be getting some amount of value here. Alright, Recruiter of the Guard. So I think our deck, if we're not getting hit by mana issues, is going to be quite good in this matchup because we've just got a bunch of mid-range creatures that have value, a lot like theirs, but our creatures are generally bigger. So that should stand us in good stead. But, and there's a big but there, our opponent's deck has a lot of mana disruption and our mana base is pretty feeble. So I've got another Solitude coming in. Do I think I can win this game? Alright, if we don't draw a land, I'm going to scoop just to save everyone's time. Sure, that's fine. Alright, I'm just going to scoop here. I don't think we're going to get back from this stranglehold, and it's not going to be the most exciting content to watch us die slowly over a course of several turns. So, what do I like here? I like things that mess with our opponent, like this. I'm not big into Scavenging Ooze here. Not really big into the Collector Ouphe here. I think Outland Liberator is probably better. I don't mind the Force of Vigor, potentially. Like, it's not super amazing, but it does some work. I think I'd like to have a Bojuka Bog, just as another land, given what our opponent's deck can do. We don't really need this Endurance. That gives us 2 things to find. Triumph of St. Katherine does outclass their creatures. We've kind of already got their creatures outclassed. Forth Eorlingas is quite nice to turn the corner with. We haven't cast it yet today either, so maybe we don't need this Force of Vigor. We just have the Outland Liberator. But if they've got like Jitteys and things, we are going to want to be able to blow up a Jittey. Right, talk myself back into having this Force of Vigor, which means I think we probably have to trim the Forth Eorlingas to get that Force of Vigor in there. Alright. Obviously, Collector Ouphe can disrupt Jittey potentially, but it's not actually going to be that helpful most of the time, because they'll just be able to remove it with Solitude or a Plow or whatever. So I'm going to shut down enough of their deck. 4 lands against their mana denial strategy is pretty reasonable. So I'll give this a whirl. Especially when 2 of them are fetches, we can just kind of sit behind them without cracking them. So we're quite likely to be able to cast something on turn 3, which granted is a little bit slow, but this is a slow matchup. So I just want to make sure I have maximum resources and have the chance to leverage them by actually having lands. Our opponent's unlikely to just run away with the game unless they're messing with our mana base. It's just going to be a grindy affair. Alright, fetch land, go. Basic planes from our opponent. Not a surprise. Up the Beanstalk. That is good enough for me to cast here. Are we getting a basic? I don't think so. I don't think we're about that life. We're just going to get 2 Savannahs here. We can't be wasted off of white. Let's just get ourselves some card advantage going. We've got more pitch elementals now. They didn't show us any black mana. Alright, we've got this Bojuka Bog, which is bad. They do have an extraction specialist, so it can have some text. So we were just running that because we wanted another land against a deck that's going to be casting lots of... Sorry, not casting, activating lots of land destruction abilities. Alright, Thalia. That probably means that we're playing the Knight, which is fine. It's a good card. Right, so I don't want to expose our red source until we need it, so I'm just going to play this out to green, white. Let's have a 4/4. Next turn we can play the Fable, we can loot away this Bojuka Bog, and just kind of get on with our lives a little bit. Bag End. This is Horizon Canopy with a different name. It's from the Lord of the Rings stuff. Okay, so our opponent doesn't have any Thar this time, so that's good. Alright, they haven't spent 2 mana for their own Plow. That's nice for us to see. In they come. A Green Sun Zenith. I don't think I'm about that right now. I just want to get this Fable running. The Thalia doesn't change the mana cost of spells. It changes the amount you have to pay. If that makes sense. So it won't be big enough to trigger Up the Beanstalk. Actually, no, it will, right? It makes them cost 1 more. I don't know. We'll find out. Okay, so probably going to lose the Fable rather than the Goblin Shaman. I mean, they can't take the Shaman because it's a token, but they could take the Beanstalk here. Oh dear. Alright, so they can attack with their first striker if they want. That's pretty good. A Wasteland. They're going to take out our red source. They're going to take out our Wasteland. That's interesting. Alright, deck, what have you got for us? A Solitude. We're not about that just yet, are we? And we can't play this Fable unless we attack with our Goblin Shaman token. I think we'll attack with our Goblin Shaman token and see what our opponent wants to do about this. So we could just play the Knight and the Bojuka Bog to stop any weird shenanigans like Crucible or something getting us with this Wasteland. Because it did seem like an interesting one to hit with a Wasteland. And this means that we have more mana for next turn because of our treasure token. Don't Crucible me, opponent. That's what I'm saying right there. So next turn we can hopefully start making some big inroads into taking over this game. Like we'll have options for casting Solitude, we can cast Fable, we can cast a Green Sun Zenith that draws us a card, or we're just going to lose our poor little Knight Reliquary here. That's fine. We don't have anything to pitch to the Solitude right now, so we can't do like a pitch and then block in combat, but maybe next time we can do that. Alright, they're going to leave their first striker back on blocks here. That's interesting. Going for like a slow measured approach. Alright. So we don't have anything really cool like a questing beast. That would be the thing I'd like to find with the Green Sun Zenith. But I think we're just going to wait and play this Solitude and draw a card with it. See if we can get a blowout in combat. Our opponent doesn't have a Vial, so we don't have to worry about instant speed Flicker Wisps. They haven't shown us like Ephemerate. You don't really see that very often, so I'm not expecting that one. Alright, they're drawing a card by sacking the Horizon Canopy. A Mirren Crusader. Double strike, protection from green, protection from black. Okay, that's fine. Draw a card with our Solitude. Let's get rid of one of these Skyclaves. Doesn't really matter which one, does it? We'll get ourselves a 3-3. The 3-3 can then block the Thalia and live. And that is a pretty good turn. The 3-3 can also trade with the Mirren Crusader because it won't die to its first strike. Thank you, Skyclave Apparition, for giving me some blue creatures. Alright, we should be doing alright here. Alright, a Lightning Bolt, that's also very good too. Yeah, I think we just fire this off. I'm okay trading any of these cards for this Skyclave. Whilst the Skyclave is on the board, they can do some weird stuff with it, like blinking it and getting some extra value that way. So if they want to trade it for one of our guys, that's my preference, to be honest. I don't think we're Green Sun's anything for anything just yet. You can go and get another Knight, I suppose. That's fine too. But I'd rather just pay this for more mana and get a card draw as well, since we're quite far ahead. Maybe that's greedy. Recruiter of the Guard. Sure. What friend are you going to retrieve? They got a Solitude. That's pretty reasonable. If our Solitude lives for long enough, we get to start Fable and Mirror breaking it, and that's going to just run away with this game. A Green Sun Zenith. Do I want to discard a Green Sun Zenith? These are just guaranteed cantrips. I don't think we want two of them, though. Alright, we'll get rid of one of these. Birds of Paradise. You are not the one. Alright. Let's go up the Beanstalk with a Green Sun Zenith. Solitude, that's another card draw later on. We could get the Mawloc and just gobble up the Recruiter. We could get the Knight and just have a massive yacht. I think we just want to keep their board clean now. I'm just going to get this Mawloc out. We just don't want our opponent to have some good things to flicker. Alright, we're just going to try and put our opponent to the test. Let's just do as much damage as we can. Applying our Solitude, sure. So they could have something like a Battle of Bywater, but that's not even going to kill that many of our things. Do I want to keep this Birds of Paradise in hand for potential future Fables? Do I want to have it in play? I think I'm going to keep it in case we draw another Fable for now. It's not really giving us any extra utility right now. Like, we've got 11 mana after we attack with our goblins anyway. So that's 2 5-drops. Alright, that's the thing that I wouldn't mind shooting with a Mawloc or whatever if we draw one. But this is possibly going to chump block. We know they've got a Solitude. Alright, they're scooping it up. Okay, lots of creatures that blow things up when they come into play. Is a good place for us to be. I think we're just going to continue being in that place. I think having the 1 Force of Vigor is fine. Let's just go in. Alright, this hand seems good. We've got removal spells, we've got lands, we've got card advantage. This is nice. If our opponent's got any like spooky lands, like a Saga, which they could have, we can deal with that. Otherwise, we can just get rid of their Rishan Port. It seems like a nice place for us to be. Obviously, we're still exposed to a heavy mana denial strategy from our opponent. An Ether Vial. Okay. Ether Vial into mana denial will defeat us, though. So we do have to watch out for that one. A Birds of Paradise. Would I like a Birds of Paradise given what our opponent's deck does? I think so. I think we're getting a Taiga here. We'd quite like to get just 2 Tigers. Alright, let's just get this Birds in. This can help versus their mana denial strategy. It could give us an early Mawloc to contest their creatures, although they're likely to just wait until end of turn and then vial in like a Mother of Runes or something. So we're probably going to be keeping up the Lightning Bolt, but we'll also have access to playing up the Beanstalk first as well. Because we do need to kill this Mother of Runes as soon as it comes down. If they got 2 Mother of Runes, then that's going to be an issue. Okay, a Wasteland. We could have not fetched and not played anything, and we would have been able to dodge that. But we have a Birds of Paradise in play, so we're kind of in a similar position. Excuse me? That's very rude. Our opponent says extracting our Taiga. I did say we didn't really want mana denial, and that's what that is. So, if I remember rightly, we've just got a Plateau as our only other red source now. Disgusting. Okay. Well, our opponent's definitely picked up on a weakness with our deck and is going to exploit it, so you Can't argue with that one. That's a very weird card to bring in, though, in this sort of matchup. But here we are. So they know we've got a lightning bolt in hand. Let's just pass the turn. We can use the birds to cast the bolt rather than using our land, because we don't want to fetch a land and then get wastelanded. Okay, they didn't put anything in off of the ether vial. So now we can bolt a Thalia if that's what they want to do here. And a Ganjo. Okay, opponent. A Knight of the Reliquary. That's a relatively large customer. Okay, so we're probably getting a... What are we getting here? Is it a forest? Plateau? Is it Savannah? Yikes. Like, they know this is our only red source in the deck if we fetch it. I think we are doing it, though. So we're going to play out this Fable here, because this gives us more red mana. So they can play a Thalia, but it will still be vulnerable to a Lightning Bolt or a Mawloc next turn, because they won't be able to get the protection up in time. So hopefully we can chew through with our Shaman and get a bunch of treasures, so we at least have access to red mana. But our opponent is going to prioritise wastelanding our Plateau pretty hard, I would imagine. No 2-drop. What is in our opponent's hand? Well, they brought it in Sage Extraction. That's one less threat, I guess. That card didn't... That was card disadvantage just to make our fetch lands worse. A Richard and Port. Your friend and mine. Alright, they're tapping it for mana instead. So this could be a Skyclave. Yeah, there's a Skyclave. So that can hit our Fable. Okay. Wouldn't mind drawing a green source this turn. I guess we've got the Shaman token. That's kind of a green source, isn't it? A Wasteland. Right, we're going to attack with our Goblin Shaman token here. I don't believe they're going to block this. Alright. What have you got? They were just trying to tempt us to do something by activating their vial. Interesting. Are you going to block our with your Skyclave Apparition? They are not. Okay. I'll play this, and I will cast a Mawloc for red. No, that's got to be green, isn't it? Green, red, and 1. This will do some fighting. And we'll get rid of their Richard Port, because we don't really want to have to deal with that. Okay. So our opponent's got 2 cards in hand. We got a decent amount of stuff. A Battle of Bywater could get rid of 2 of our guys. But, okay, they've left this on 3. But they didn't actually put anything in off of it last time. So that kind of makes me think our opponent's hand is relatively low in action. A Lion's Sash. Sure. So if it's a permanent card, they get to pump it. So we can blow this up. Right, I think we just go to attacks with our friends here. Get another treasure. That's a very important part of this equation. I guess we Lightning Bolt this now. So we've got a Flicker Wisp. They would have used it the previous turn, I would imagine. But if they have a Flicker Wisp, that's all they have at this point. Okay, I would like to cast an Up the Beanstalk here, I think. We are very, very far ahead, as you can probably tell. Okay. Yep, I'll play another land. We could play a Knight here, but I don't want to play into Battle of the Bywater too much. We could play the Fable. I think I'd rather hold up the Lightning Bolt in case something weird happens. We have the win next turn. We don't need to play more bodies. What have you got, opponent? A Mirren Crusader. Okay, we don't care about that guy. He very clearly does not have protection from red. A Flicker Wisp, you say. So that's just going to get rid of our illusion token here. Yep, that's fine. But we know what our opponent's got in hand, which is nothing. So we can Lightning Bolt this away and swing. Or we could Lightning Bolt this away and swing. It doesn't really... It's better to hit the Crusader, I think. A Savannah. Let's bolt away this guy. Let's attack with these 2. We'd rather our opponent doesn't have anything on board. If they want to trade, I'll take it. Okay, they don't want to trade. Let's play a land. Make ourselves Fable the Mirrorbreaker. Again, I don't think I want to play this Knight in case they have Battle of Bywater. I guess we could have Wastelanded and play the Knight. That's certainly an option. But my brain is somewhat frazzled from the vertigo and the headache today. Okay. Our opponent's got 1 card in hand. They can put a Yorion into their hand though, which feels like what's about to happen, and then they can put it in via the vial. And Yorion is pretty big, but we'll have more cards to cycle through with our Fable here. Yep, there goes the Yorion. Right, doing this now. This gets to take away one of our Goblin Shaman tokens. When they get rid of this Flicker Wisp, it will come back in their end step because they're doing this in the main phase. They can also Flicker Wisp their own Yorion, but I don't think they get to do that because they need the 4/5 body. So we lose one of our... Yep, there goes our Shaman token. Okay. Let's see what we find off of our... We just lightning bolt them. Our opponent's got one card in hand. Let's just bolt them and hopefully win the match. Alright, we won the game. So now we're 2-2. That was a bit of a slog, but it usually is against Death and Taxes with anything you play. You either roll them over quickly or it's a slog. Alright, so we are 2-2, getting the full amount of games every time. 2-1, 2-1, 1-2, 1-2. So let's see what the final game holds for us. We've got some mana troubles here, and it's already a mulligan because of this Triumph. So let's just send this one back. Yeah, I can deal with this one a bit more. We'll keep this and we'll throw back. It should be the Triumph, but this Dryad Arbor is so bad. I kind of want to throw both of these away, but I think it's probably just the Triumph that goes. It's still a land. We could just play the Dryad Arbor on turn 1. If our opponent wants to interact with it, it's not the end of the world for us. Misty Rainforest. What flavour of Misty Rainforest are they? Okay, they're a blue-black deck. We're going to get scammed again. We are. Okay, they're pitching Orcish Bowmasters to their grief. We're going to lose probably the Green Sun Zenith. That would be my guess. But it depends what they're planning on doing. They might want to take our Mawloc. Just so we can't delete their grief this turn if that's what their whole plan is. But if they get another bite of the cherry, then we're losing 2 of these 3 cards anyway. Alright, they took our Mawloc. It's interesting. I believe we're getting reanimated on. Oh, they want to reanimate our Mawloc. Yeah, that's pretty good. Goodbye, Dryad Arbor. You were a terrible card. Okay. Not a big fan of what just happened, but nothing I can really do about it right now. Next turn we can try to play a Green Sun Zenith, getting a Birds of Paradise into our opponent's Orcish Bowmaster deck. Not a fan of that one, but it's a thing we can try. Alright, we take 2. At least we're only taking 2, so it's not exactly a big clock. Although I probably shouldn't say that because I mean they're just going to reanimate a troll or something. But a Ponder from our opponent. Right, we're going to make the play we have. Alright, we could hold our lands, but one of them's already wastelandable anyway. We may as well try and get our Green Sun Zenith going. I think I would like the birds because we need the red mana. Now if we get wastelanded off of like a Taiga or something and we draw like a Savannah, we want to be able to cast our Fable. Alright, our opponent is cracking a fetch land in the upkeep to shuffle away the other cards from the Ponder. They've got a Bayou. Okay, so we might be looking at a slightly different build. Now, this could just be a Bayou for some sideboard cards. This could be a Bayou for things like main deck Witherbloom Command. Alright, there is the Witherbloom Command. Spoke it into existence. So we lose our Birds of Paradise. And our opponent gets back a land. If it's a wasteland that they mill, which they have milled, that's pretty bad for us. I don't think we... Well, we can still win this game, but it's not looking great for us. Our Wooded Foothills, we can put that into play at least. If we can start casting these spells we've got, they're going to be pretty good, because they're going to be bigger than what our opponent's got going on right now. So we can play like a 4/4 Knight, or we can just get Fable going, and then that solves some of our mana troubles. But we do need to draw a land, and we do need for our Fable to resolve in order for that to happen. Brainstorm, some more selection for our opponent. Wasteland on the grief. Okay, so we're going to lose probably our Fable here, which is annoying because that's the one I would have preferred to cast because at least it gives us more mana in future turns and just, you know, more selection to find whatever we need after that. Yep, there. Oh no, they took a Knight. Interesting. Should I be worried about that? Alright, a Wasteland that we're not going to use for wastelanding purposes. Let's go get a Savannah. If they're taking the Knight, does that mean they're scared of the Knight and they don't have a clean answer for a Knight? Now they've got me thinking I do want the Knight. Or is that their cunning ploy? No, you wouldn't just leave someone with a Fable. Alright, our opponents told us they don't want us to have a Knight. So I'm going to have a Knight, hopefully. Day's obviously pretty good here. There it is. Okay. Opponent doing some shuffling. Getting under city sewers. Let's see if they surveil anything into their graveyard. Gives us a little bit more information about their deck. They left it on top. That's probably worse for us than them surveilling something scary into the graveyard. Alright, opponent. They've got a 3-turn clock on us. We've got one card in hand which can kind of stabilize for us. With a Bloom Command, getting back a Wasteland. Yeah, okay. I've had enough. That's just going to Wasteland us again, and we're not going to get anywhere. Alright, so this is a matchup where I imagine these endurances are going to be somewhat helpful. This Collector Ouphe is not going to be helpful. I think Bojuka Bog just as another land is also pretty good here. These cards are good if we get to that stage of the game. Forth Eorlingas might be able to help us get to that state of the game. Triumph of St. Katherine is just bad. I don't really want this in the deck. Are we boarding out like a birds because of Orcish Bowmasters? It becomes kind of awkward because what we're trying to accomplish here. But we can still tutor for them if we really feel like it. We haven't tutored for this Noble Hierarch once. Maybe we'll trim this and just play fetch lands, leave them uncracked and try and win that way. We've got 2 cards to cut. Now, we could just cut these Forth Eorlingases. I think that's probably what I'm going to do. So, we haven't cast a Forth Eorlingas at all this league, and we're not going to. I've definitely got some thoughts about this one when we get to the post-game lobby, if you will. Hopefully my my painkillers will last until then. We have lands. That's kind of the thing that I'm most worried about, is just getting Wastelanded, which is a bit of an indictment for our deck there. Okay, let's play this Windswept Heath. We can't be Wasteland off of that. If our opponent goes like a Grief line, then they're probably going to have to take the Lightning Bolt. If I go Grief, Reanimate, Grief. We're not getting smashed up by our opponent doing the spooky things. Alright, so we're not going to have to worry about our Dryad Arbor getting killed because we don't have that card in our hand, thankfully. It's not where you want it. Alright, Undercity Sewers. They left it on top. Good for them, I suppose. Okay. Let's see what his turn holds. Alright. There's a Wasteland. They've correctly identified that we are pretty cold to the old Wasteland. I will play... Oh, this Karakas is so bad. I'll play this. I don't care if it gets Wastelanded. And our Windswept Heath is relatively safe. We haven't seen a stifle out of our opponent, so maybe that's not a thing they have. We can but hope. So, am I playing around days here? I think I do want to play around days. I'd like to get a Scavenging Ooze, perhaps. But we're just going to see how this next turn plays out. They don't have a Bayou yet, so they can't rebuy this Wasteland. And the only target we have right now is the Karakas, which is something I don't really care if it gets Wastelanded. It's just there as bait for the most part. Alright, they got a Bayou now. Still not cracking. Interesting. They're not doing anything with that. Okay. Let's crack a Windswept Heath. We can always go and get a Lightning Bolt if they've got someone like an Oppo agent here. They did not. Right, let's cast an Up the Beanstalk. Again, we can always bolt the Bowmasters if that's what they have. Yep, there is the Bowmasters. Let's go and get Taiga. Try. Oh, we don't have a Taiga left, do we? Okay, we get a Plateau. And we will bolt this. Alright, so we get our draw. Okay, so now we can Wasteland our opponent off of green. That seems worth doing to me. We did put ourselves in a situation where we couldn't play around days then. So I think we were probably supposed to play our Wasteland first. And a Tropical Island. Okay, they still have green. Feels like our opponent's deck's halfway between like Bug Beans and Scam. Okay, we're going to lose our Beanstalk. And they're going to get a Wasteland back. And we've played this game before. It's not a fun one. Alright, we get to... Alright, they're just going to reanimate their Bowmasters here. That's fine. In for 2. We're not getting Wastelanded just yet. They've got to wait till next turn to do that, which is fine by me, I guess. Alright, we're going to have to play around days here, I think. Green, red, 1. By leaving up the Karakas, we maybe incentivize our opponent to blow that one up, which is obviously the one we'd rather they blow up. So we're going to have a 3-3. We're going to eat their Orc army. They do have a Bowmasters in play, but we have another Mawloc for that. I'd rather just stem the tide of damage we're taking, and then we can Mawloc and Beanstalk and all that jazz. They're probably not going to take out our Karakas. Oh, they are taking out our Karakas. The bait worked. That's so good. Unless they've got a Leovold or something. Although Karakas Leovold doesn't feel amazing. Right, there's a Brainstorm. Surprised they used their Tropical Island to cast that Brainstorm rather than using one of their black sources. This means their deck probably contains a Jalthi Voidwalker now. That's why you would think about keeping the 2 black mana available. Alright, our opponent looks like they're paying some costs here. Oh. This is like a Dismember. Okay, yeah. Because if you put the mana in, it automatically siphons black mana into the black cost rather than the colorless. That's why they were tapping and untapping. Okay, they're reanimating a Baleful Strix. Okay. So we're going to take 1 here. But then we get to Mawloc into Beans. Let's just eat this Bowmasters. Do I want to play into the days? I think so, because if they've got a Wasteland kicking around, right? So if they Wasteland us, we want to be able to cast Night and be able to pay through a days. But obviously we can't pay through a days because if they Wasteland us, we won't be able to do that. So if they use their days on the Beanstalk, it means our Night gets through. And our Night's going to be large. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's going to be an 8/8. So we've got 2 8/8s in hand. We've got a Scavenging Ooze that we can draw upon next turn. Alright, so these two are just going to fight each other. Sure, that's just like a bad Dismember. That's fine. Or a good Dismember, I suppose. Another Night. Another Bowmasters. Oh, God. I'm struggling a little bit to keep my brain together on this one. But let's see what we're up to now. Would I like to... they've played 4 Reanimates here, so I don't think that's the line that we're playing this game on anymore. Let's have a large creature. They're just going to keep their Baleful Strix back on blocks, no doubt. But we can make multiple large creatures. Another Baleful Strix. Okay, that's annoying, but it is what it is. We don't have an Outland Liberator here, so we can't just try and get that and flip it and attack and blow up the Strix. Okay, what are we going to draw this turn? Okay. We'll get another Night going. We could sacrifice a land to get a Cradle and then play a Fable and Mirrorbreaker. That seems reasonable. What are we getting? Probably the Savannah goes here. Look at the Cradle. We get to play the Fable around a days. Alright, so now we're just sort of entering our big mid-range game. We could get punished if our opponent has a Murktide. But we can start attacking with our Goblin Shaman. We can get a card draw going with... Alright, they're going to take our last card. Sure. I was going to say we can get a card draw going with a big Green Sun. Okay. So now we're probably just poking with our Knight the Reliquary. And whatever it trades up into is probably going to be reasonable. We can afford to pitch 1 card to this, provided they don't have a Bowmasters. So I am going to pitch 1 card to this, I think. Alright, a Lightning Bolt. That's pretty good. Right, they're going to ping on this so they can just block it with a 1/1. I think we will move on with our lives and not let that happen. Right, they're cracking this polluted Delta. They've got another... This is going to be another Bowmasters. It is going to be another Bowmasters. Okay. I could have played that in response to our Fable, but then maybe we don't loot. Alright, goodbye, friend. So if we're worried about a Murktide, we probably want to activate this Knight in our opponent's upkeep. Just strip those out. We've got a Lightning Bolt if we want it. Could have cast on the upkeep on this Grief, because now we've just given them... Alright, they're attacking with a bunch of stuff, aren't they? They're attacking with a different bunch of stuff. Yeah, we should have bolted in the upkeep to dodge Force of Will here. They have exactly Force of Will. We punted this one. They did not, okay. Blocks here. What's our opponent got here? Because they don't have any blockers left, and we have 2 lethal threats on board. Maybe they thought we had a Sujiri step or something, but then could have just sailed through last turn. Aha, the Pernicious Deed, you say. Alright, so they can blow everything up. And then we'll just reset the game, but we have the first draw. And our Cradle doesn't work, but we can cast all of our spells still. Okay, that's not a bad one. I think we just play this now. Again, we don't want Murktides coming down, if that's the thing our opponent has access to. Alright, so we've got the first threat. I'm not sure our opponent needed to do that. Like, we obviously did have a lot of stuff, and they didn't know what was in our tutor box. But, okay, Ponder's a pretty good find off the top. It looks like we're more cards into our deck than our opponent, but that's because we put a bunch on the bottom. I think they are like 1 or 2 more cards ahead of us. Or 3, maybe 3. Somewhere around that. With some of the extra draws they've had. Obviously, we've had extra draws too. Alright, Ponder into Ponder. Well, we don't really have any plays, and our opponent knows we don't have any plays because we're Hellbent, so let's see what they're up to. They shuffled off that first Ponder, and it found another Ponder. Let's see what they do with this one. They did not shuffle. Okay. That's less good. And go attacks. How do I feel about having a Wasteland in our hand? It does help us play some like larger Mawlocs and stuff if we put it into play. If we hold it in our hand, we might be able to trick our opponent. I don't think we're getting to do anything with it, given our opponent's board state. So I think we're just going to pass and keep it as like a surprise for our opponent. An Entomb. Okay. So they are running an Entomb package. And oh, just an Uro. That's really good. Yeah, we couldn't take our opponent off of Uro mana even if we played this Wasteland. Yikes. 1, 2, 3 cards in graveyard though. So they're going to need to find some more stuff to put in there. Maybe you're supposed to keep... Although they were using that to shuffle off the Ponder, I suppose. So that makes sense. I don't believe they have a Murktide in their deck anymore though. I think they are on the Uro as their big thing. Maybe hard casting a Troll. That's the thing they might have in their deck. Oh, okay. I spoke into existence and now we have a 1-turn clock. Okay. So Solitude off the top would be nice. We do have a bunch of them. We haven't seen one yet this game. Up the Beanstalk. Okay. Oh. Let's tap the correct mana for this and go up the Beanstalk. Turns out wastelanding our opponent off a Troll would have been good. So now we're just dead. Yeah. Alright. We could have given ourselves a little bit more time there, but I think we still lose to the Uro. And my brain is completely fried at the moment. I hope none of you have never experienced Vertigo. It is not great. But we managed to get through it, and the deck went 2-3, which I think, given the inherent problems we discovered pretty much from the off, and was something I was worried about going into this one as well, I don't think we can complain too much about 2-3 there. We did split a lot of the games as well, the ones we lost. Alright, let's talk about this deck, because I've got a lot to say. So, the first thing I'm going to say is, I don't think this deck is good. But, I think the core idea behind where this deck started is good. This was just one of the options we wanted to try out. Like I was chatting with the donor, and this was kind of one of the options that came up. And there was a few NAYA Zenith decks that I've seen lately. One of them smashed me on a channel last week. And I've seen that, I think it's had 3 5-0s now. And I basically sort of took that and was like, let's take out some of these bits and put in some other stuff. Like instead of playing Sylvan Library, we're an Up the Beanstalk deck. That's kind of the jam that I wanted to roll with. And it didn't quite work out. And I think the mana base was definitely a big part of that. So we've tried like the Zenith version of making the NAYA Beanstalk deck work. Now, I think the NAYA Beanstalk deck is a solid idea. I just don't think it wants to be this Green Sun Zenith deck. So with that in mind, this whole package of 15 cards isn't really where we want to be. That's not to say that we don't want to play perhaps some of these cards like Endurance just as a good card anyway. That's certainly something to think about. So what the deck wants to be is a red-white deck that splashes green for Up the Beanstalk. That's kind of how it plays. So a little while back on the channel, I played a blue-white control deck that splashed green for Up the Beanstalk, and we had a pretty good time with it. So that's kind of what we're looking at doing. And I think you want to have some mana acceleration in a deck like that, which means we're probably looking at something like... I don't think we want to be playing Mana Dorks. I don't think this is a good time to be playing Mana Dorks. We don't want to be playing Chromox if we're playing all the pitch elementals, which means we're playing Mox Diamond, which means we need to have a higher land count. It also means we want to have something like a Life from the Loam in our deck. So let's do a little rebuild. I think first things first, I was not a fan of this Triumph of St. Katherine. Okay, so what we're going to be using in this deck is going to be like Life from the Loam plus Up the Beanstalk. These, you know, these are going to be sort of our green card advantage engines, which means we're also going to want some Mox Diamonds. And then we're probably just going to want some more lands. So I'm not going to work out what lands we want exactly. But if we add in 3 more lands and this, so if we just stick these in the lands pile just so we have a rough count. So that's going to be 25 lands. And if we just remove these. So this gives us 56 cards. So from here, I would also say that Lightning Bolt is not the one for us. I think we need to be playing Swords to Plowshares. I also think that Mawloc is definitely part of why we're trying to like leverage our Up the Beanstalk. But I think we probably want our other 2 elementals. So if we bring these into the main deck, it gives us 58. So if we turn like 2 of these into more lands to make our Mox Diamonds better, and then we have 2 plows in our deck. Like obviously, you know, we're just kind of spitballing here. And the idea is we have creatures, so our win conditions are also removal, basically, is the plan here. And like, so everything we're using as removal is also like board positioning. So Mawloc does this, Furies does this, Solitude does this. Forth Eorlingas can kind of be removal if you're just going to assemble a load of blockers. And if we've got the Mox Diamonds, then we don't need as many like 1-drop removal spells. Obviously we have these that we can fire if we need to, but this means we can play turn 1 Beanstalk or turn 1 Loam. And what it also means is if we're running 27 lands, we can put some of the Surveil lands in our deck, which means the turn 1, okay, we play a fetch land, don't do anything. We're not doing anything at that point. We're basically casting half a Ponder. That's kind of what the Surveil lands feel like sometimes. So by adding in some Surveil lands and getting rid of some of these lands that are a bit rubbish, you know, things like Cradle or whatever, and I don't think necessarily we need Karakas. Although, we have a Life from the Loam, and it is in our colours, so it's probably fine. So we can certainly keep them, but this is definitely not going to be a Cradle deck. Now, the question is, do we need all of these Loams? I don't think so. We can probably trim a Loam and then get some more action going. And then you have to ask, what does our deck do if we're not playing this Up the Beanstalk? And that's where it gets a little sketchy. Like, we do have Fable and Mirror Break, which is obviously a very powerful thing that can kind of find us the things we're doing. If we can get to the hard casting of Solitudes and Furies, that's going to be good in a lot of sort of fair matchups. But the problem is we're just going to be a little bit slow to get things going. And I'm not sure Legacy is a place where you get to play this sort of style anymore. Like, we could chuck in a bunch of stuff in our lands to sort of help us out, but we're not playing like land tutors. So that doesn't strike me like it's going to be the most amazing thing. What we could do is we could add in some interesting lands. We could run a couple of Elvish Reclaimers here and maybe find room for other Elvish Reclaimers. So let's say we only run 2 Loams. So we have 4 Elvish Reclaimers, 4 Mox Diamonds. So we have like 8 turn 1 plays that are actually like turn 1 plays. Obviously the Mox Diamond, if we don't have one of these 6 cards, isn't going to be the most amazing turn 1 play. So that's something to think about too. And then you start questioning, are we even a Mawloc deck? And then when you start thinking, are we a Mawloc deck? Then you end up in a situation where, what are we trying to do here with the Beanstalk? Is this even worth doing? And I'm not wholly convinced that it is. Like, I think if you were to play this deck as I've sort of rejiggered it, you would end up winning a lot more games than what we did today. But I don't think you're going to have a good run at a trophy or something, which is kind of what we're trying to improve this deck to do. Like, I don't think we're going to be able to fit in a Saga package that well, but we could fit in, if we're running the Reclaimers, we could fit in, I don't think we want to put the Dark Depths in there. I know that's a weird thing for me to say, but I don't think that's where we want to be. But we could put in some useful tools, so we can have the main deck Bojuka Bog, we could have some Maze of Ith action, we can have a single Echoing Deeps, that's pretty good. We can have one of each basic, which would be really sweet, because, you know, we got kind of punked by Wastelands a fair bit. So I think there's definitely some options we have available to us to improve our mana base and sort of improve what we're doing here. Maybe we don't need to be a 27 land deck, but if you're playing Mox Diamond, kind of feels like you maybe are, but we could trim Mox here. So if we trim a Mox, So we only got 3 in here. Then maybe we could afford to go down a land as well. So we're looking at 26 here. And then this gives us 4 slots effectively to play with. So if we've got our reclaimers already, maybe we do keep one, like a third loam. So 3 loams, 3 moxes, 4 elvish reclaimers. And that gives us 3 more slots to play with. Like we've got our card advantage here. Maybe we could play another Forth Eorlingas because we kind of need more white cards to pitch to Solitude, right? That's kind of something we're lacking. And if we're playing too many of these sort of green spells, we don't get to do that. So if we played like 3 plows or a plow and 2 Forth Eorlingases, that's something you could possibly think about. Maybe 2 plows and 1 Forth. But we definitely need more white cards because that's something, if you look at our list, we are struggling in a big way with white sources. Like we just have these and these 2. So maybe we don't even get to be this deck anymore. So sorry we keep doing some rebuilds here, but that's what happens when you're just sort of going through the thought process. Some of you enjoy this, some of you have probably switched off already and aren't even hearing me say that you switched off. But what we could do, I guess, is play more like... a while ago I played a Boros control deck that basically said, I'm going to win every creature matchup you throw at me. So maybe we could do something like that. And that deck, you know, was using Staff of the Storyteller and that sort of jazz because it was pre-Bowmasters. But we could just change this up a little bit. And instead, we'll end up splashing for the green here. So maybe we just splash for Up the Beanstalk. Or maybe Up the Beanstalk and Mawloc. And then we end up just playing like the spells we had in that one. So we had loads of white spells. We'd have loads of stuff to pitch to Solitude. We even played in the Giant Avenger, which wasn't correct, but it was a fun thing to do. But yeah, so instead if we turn these 11 cards into sort of red and white control spells, so we could get 4 plows in, that will help us out here. Say if we have like another Forth Eorlingas in there. I was even playing Lightning Helix, which does pitch to both of our things and does buy us a reasonable amount of time. And it does get around sort of Chalice for 1 type stuff. But then we do need some 1-drops here, so maybe we do need some bolts. So that'll go in the red pile. And then I think we would still need at least 3 more white cards. But then still 14 white cards isn't the most if we're trying to pitch cast these Furies. Now, we're not always trying to pitch cast Furies, but we do need to get things up and running. It's not like we get to play Force of Will, which is obviously like one of the best things you can do without the Beanstalk. So the more I sort of build a version of this and take it apart, it feels like it just doesn't quite work, which is why it took so long between me and the donor to try and find something that did work. And even then, I don't think it did work, as you can see. But we basically just sort of took some things from a deck that was working and thought, can we change it a little bit, take it away from Sylvan Library, add in a few more pitch elementals, and try and go that route with it. And it didn't work. And that's fine. Sometimes you experiment and it fails. And we have sort of played around with this Up the Beanstalk Naya thing a fair bit. And I just don't think it quite comes together. I think we're trying to do too many things. Because Up the Beanstalk kind of wants you to have a decent chunk of green stuff. But then you don't get to use your pitch elementals as much. And in some matchups, your pitch elementals won't even be that good anyway. Because if your opponent's not committing creatures, the red and white ones aren't really doing anything. It's not like Force of Will, which is basically good in every single matchup because it always has targets because your opponent's always going to be casting spells. So Up the Beanstalk does a lot more work there. So the overall verdict is I don't know how to build a good Naya Up the Beanstalk deck. If you've got any ideas, by all means get in touch. I'm really interested in sort of building around these sorts of areas, but I think I've given it quite a lot of effort and it's just not really panning out. I think there are good Naya decks, so like the deck that this was loosely based on as the sort of the scaffolding that we started altering. Like I said, that deck's been putting up a few 5-0s. It's just very good in the sort of blue-black scammy type matchups as a general rule. And, you know, can do a lot of mid-rangey stuff, but struggles against some of the combo decks, but those are being pushed out a little bit anyway at the moment. So there's definitely room for those sorts of decks. Maybe there's a breakout Naya deck that's okay too. Like, you get some of the things like Thalia, obviously a little bit of a nombo with breakout, but being able to find Thalia when it's important is really important, obviously. And you can probably find some other white hate bears that are worth finding. Although, given the popularity of Death and Taxes, due to it not being very good right now, maybe White Hay Bears aren't good, and the Jund breakout is just the better way of doing it. So, yeah, maybe if you want Naya, you want to be playing Naya Depths or the Naya Maverick deck that this was kind of ported over from. And just trying to mess around with Up the Beanstalk isn't going to work. And if you want to play all these pitch elementals and things, then maybe you're supposed to just play like a straight up Boros control, which I will be playing again on the channel at some point because I had a lot of fun with it. And it's about time I updated it with the way the meta has changed, because that was quite a while back. Alright, quite a long breakdown on that one. I hope you enjoyed that one. My head is absolutely splitting with a headache right now, and my vertigo is all over the shop. So thank you so much for putting up with me on this one. Sorry I was not necessarily at my best today, but I hope I still entertained you to some level. Remember to like and subscribe, it helps me out. I'll catch you at the next one. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles, and lastly the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.